Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. I'm joined today by Kevin Graham, and we're here to discuss St Johnstone 1, Celtic 3. Kevin, at half time, we were speaking about how comfortable we were, how happy we were with the performance. How are you feeling at full time?
Feeling we were still comfortable, apart from that one error. It was a bit of a chewy game, eh? We had some nice steak at the start of it, then we got a bit of a wee fatty bit in the middle, then steak towards the end again, eh? We nearly caused our own downfall, but the first half we were utterly engaging, utterly fantastic. We really deserved the 2-0 lead. Against the second half, we didn't really engage as much. We kind of dropped off a bit. We were trying to see the game out. We were just letting the game happen. The game was existing in a sort of dullness. Then obviously we make the mistake. We let St Johnstone back into it. But then look, we stepped up, we scored the third goal. We could have scored another couple towards the end there. We had the gears to move through after St Johnstone scored. And when you look at it overall, it was a really, really comfortable win, and 3-0 doesn't flatter, 3-1, sorry, doesn't flatter us at all. It really should have been more. St Johnstone's man of the match was the goalkeeper. There was quite a few decent performances all over the place. It's a very happy Boxing Day. Happy.
Yep, you've made your food analogy, Kev. Everybody will be probably
Leftovers.
They've already had their fill of food for now, but we'll go for another couple of days anyway. Let's get everybody involved in the comment section. You're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and it's great to get you involved. So, Scott comes in. Scott Howe, regular contributor to A Celtic State of Mind. Welcome in, Scott, and hopefully you had a good Christmas, mate, and are looking forward to the new year. So wanted that to go in for wee Dawson. Right, let's open up the discussion straight off the bat. Joey Dawson, he's played one game for Scunthorpe, right? He's 18 years of age. We bought him. We basically bought him for the B team. If you look at the signing, we bought him for the B team, and he's been thrown in today because largely due to, as well as injury, having the COVID effect as well. He's been thrown in, and I'll tell you what, I thought he'd done really well. You know, for his first appearance, Kev, he done really well there, didn't he?
Done really well. When you say one game for Scunthorpe, I think he and both of them played at least 2 games for Scunthorpe. So, he done really well. He's held up play.
What else did Scunthorpe give us? Kevin Keegan, yeah?
Keegan,
Ray Clements?
A bad soccer EM joke, I think, about the irons, I think, or something like that.
And also, they gave us Gary Hooper.
So they did, aye.
So listen, he's in good company.
He is in good company. He doesn't look like Gary Hooper right enough. He's tall. He's a bit of a unit. He can move about a bit. He showed decent football intelligence today. Maybe he didn't want to overdo things, but he kept the play going when he got the ball. He was unlucky. The keeper got a decent hand on that to stop it going over the line. You could see by his reaction behind the goals that he was utterly that he was devastated that it didn't go in. But again, this hopefully the guy's had a taste of it. He's had the taste. He's played first team football for Celtic. That's something that me, you, and the 670 odd people that are watching us and in the comments want to do. Get that first team game for Celtic, eh? And he's done it. Fair play to the lad. He can actually go home tonight and he can be happy with his day's work.
Aye, without a doubt. And again, you know, it probably under unusual circumstances for him, but he done okay. I'm going to run through a few of the other players who, you know, under other circumstances wouldn't have been in the team today, Kev, and seeing how they've performed. Let's start off with Barkas. Barkas chucked in, first game since the Champions League qualifiers. Did he do okay for you?
Done fine. Done everything it was asked for him. He had no chance with the goal. They just tried to put him under pressure by putting corner kicks on top of him. He handled it well. His distribution was fine. He came out, handled a couple of stuff. Done everything you wanted for your goalkeeper on a day like today. It was fine.
There was one thing I meant to point it out at half time, right? There was a point where Stephen Welsh gets the ball. He's facing his goalkeeper, but he tries to twist and turn to kick the ball back up the park. It ends up going out the park. And because there was virtually no one in the stadium, you could hear quite a bit of Postecoglou on the sidelines. You could hear the players, etc. And somebody's shouting at him to say, you should have passed that back. And he says, I'm not going there. Well, I'm not going there. And I just felt it showed a wee bit of lack of confidence, which is understandable when you consider the career that Barkas has had.
It could also have something to do with the park.
Could well be. Could well be. It was a heavy pitch, Kev. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Although I do feel that in January we'll probably still be looking to offload
of course.
Barkas. But thanks everybody for getting involved. We're going to bring up as much as we possibly can. Terry Robb, here we go. Starfelt won't do. I get all the arguments for giving him time, etc. But my eyes don't lie. Not good enough and never will be. There was a couple of moments again today. I don't think that at this stage, though, Kev, you would change Starfelt and Cameron Carter-Vickers. As well as Welsh played today, I still think they're our first choice centre-back partnership.
I understand what the commenter's saying there. It was the same when I was watching it with my dad there. My dad says he's been a bomb scare all day. I'm going, well, apart from the goal, has he been a bomb scare all day? Do we need to actually go back and actually have a look at that? He seems to have a moment that he falls asleep and he switches off. And that always seems to lead to a goal. And that's always going to actually change opinion on him. I thought he'd done a lot of things well today. St Johnstone had a claim for a penalty kick, which he actually won the ball. He won the ball quite clearly in the area. But until he cuts down on mistakes, and their mistake, and they end up costly mistakes as well. And people are going to say, he's one to get replaced in the back line. I don't think he will get replaced in the back line. I think Postecoglou trusts him and Carter-Vickers. I don't think Christopher Jullien will actually kick another ball in anger or serious ball in anger for us going forward. So we're stuck with Starfelt. But again, his mistake was probably, there was that period of the game where we just went, right, we just went in a sort of wee mire and everything just switched off. It was quite dull. And we're going, like, we're 2-0 up. St Johnstone are no troubling us. St Johnstone never troubled us. St Johnstone never troubled us whatsoever. Even when they had that wee 10, 15-minute spell, and we gave them their goal, basically. We did. It was our mistake. It gave them the goal. And I think Postecoglou, I think Postecoglou, he says he has a look at the chances that we give up and how we defend. Big Ange will be sitting in that dressing room going, he will be disappointed with Starfelt giving away that goal. But overall, he'll be looking at it and go, the way that we defended was fine. Yeah. And that will be his view. And we can like it or lump it, but that will be his view.
Yeah, I mean, it's on a heavy part, like you say. We've actually changed the shape of the back line as well, Kev. Almost said we played a 3-man back four there for a second. Ewan Boy Martin comes in. Welcome to the show, Ewan Boy Martin. Beaton, man of the match. He's just getting spoken to at the moment after the game. Beaton, Kev, I don't know what your thoughts have been around near Beaton as a Celtic fan over the piece. I remember some time ago when we used to record the audio podcast in a recording studio in Stirling. And we, on a particular day, were stood up by one of our guests. I don't know if you remember, it was last minute. So we said, you know what, let's do our team of the decade instead. So I think it was yourself, me and Colin Watt. And Near Beaton made it into Colin's team. And we slagged him off for about 3 years, right up to this point. Now, I'm not going to say he's one of the best players in the last 10 years at Celtic, but I just always thought he was a bit of a bit part player, in particular over the last 2 or 3 seasons. One of the guys that was always in the squads, always got a few games here and there, but you could never really rely on him to get 20, 30 games in a row. But he's actually come into the side this season, and I think he's having probably one of the best spells of his time at Celtic. We were talking about the leadership qualities of various players this season, and we mentioned the likes of Beaton in that bracket. We mentioned the likes of Ralston in that bracket, which a year ago would have seemed absurd. But Beaton's came in today. He's played a real captain's role. I thought overall he had an excellent game, and he capped it off at the end with a goal. He was threatening that goal all day today.
It was, and I remember my over-the-top reaction when Colin actually says that he was in the team of the decade. And at that point, the version we are seeing of Near Beaton didn't exist. The version we're seeing of Near Beaton over the last few weeks has been fantastic. And he's like, he's answered. I'm a massive doubter of Near Beaton. But today he was absolutely fun. He was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant today. There was a playmaking about his game that we haven't seen, but that we don't see very often. He scored a great goal. That was a superb finish. It was a really. He took the ball in well, and he actually stroked it into the bottom corner. I mean, I called him at half time. There's really messy. It was fantastic today. He was utterly fantastic, and. People were going. Tom Roggett's done what Tom Roggett's done, but today I thought Near Beaton was a standout in a role that you don't usually see from him, which was that playmaking front foot role, and he stood up. He stood up well. He was taking guys on. He was trying to create chances. His use of the ball was good. He was fantastic. He was my man in the match today. He was my man in the match today, but maybe that's just because we're used to what Tom Rogic can actually do. I thought Near Beaton was a standout performer.
You know, your frustration with Beaton in the past, Kev, was that mainly down to his performances at centre-half rather than in midfield?
It was mainly because sometimes I thought he played within himself. Mm-hmm. He sometimes took the far too. I'm going to go back to I didn't want to go back to this, but the Livingston game earlier on this season, I called him a Chris Poke in that game because he'd done nothing. But even from that Livingston game to today, that's a completely different player playing in that midfield role. It's all I don't know what it is, but Ange needs credit. But for me, the player needs credit. The player stood up when we actually need him. He's an experienced guy. He's now standing up, being that experienced guy, and he surprised me. He has surprised me over the last couple of weeks, but today he really, really surprised me with that sort of Callum McGregor type performance.
30 years of age now, of course, now had a role as a captain today, Kev, 256 appearances for Celtic. And we've spoken about the fact that, you know, he's in his 9th season at the club, so 9 years at Celtic in 2022. And he's one of the guys that various times over the last few years could have left. And, you know, I don't think I would have been all that upset. But I see him now as a really important part. I don't think he'll play every week. But I think he's an important part of this squad that Ange Postecoglou is putting together and assembling.
Yes, I'm only going to discuss today's game, and he's been fun. He's been fantastic for Postecoglou today, but he wasn't fantastic for Postecoglou in August when he got sent off against Midtjylland. He wasn't fantastic. There's been a few sending offs and there's a few petulance in that, and if he gets that, and over the last couple of weeks. He's got that out of his game. Apart from St Mirren, but today he was utterly fantastic. Today it was a right captain's performance today, an absolutely fantastic captain's performance today from Near Beaton. And fair play to him, we did have a depleted side, but we still had enough quality on that pitch to utterly dominate that game today. And Big Beaton was the leader of men today.
He was, yes. Just as you said, that comment came in as well, Kev. Shane Donovan, second half, no crowd equals no energy, but top stuff. Great win to go into the break. How important is it, though, Kev, that the timing of this break at the moment, when you look at how ravaged we are with injury and illness at this moment in time, it just kind of gets us over that line into the January transfer window. Time to kind of reset, time to reassess and bring in some new bodies as well.
I'm actually quite glad that we haven't got any games between now and the middle of January, truthfully. The squad is depleted. It looks thin. It looks tired. Hopefully it does us good. Hopefully we've got a couple of days, week, recharge, then we can get down to some serious work, get some bodies in for the running. I mean, it was almost, if you are a conspiracy theorist, and I'm sure Chris Boyd has probably got his tinfoil hat on at the moment, it was almost as if we campaigned to get the winter break early because of the amount of injuries that we have. But I'm not going to lie. It suits us not having to play Hibs and Rangers at this precise moment in time. If you're looking at it from a truthful point of view, we've got away a fantastic performance today, comfortable win. We've got a couple of weeks off to get some bodies back, maybe get some new bodies in the door. Mm-hmm. Of course, I'm going to say it's a positive, and I'm quite glad that we're not playing the next two games. And you can make it out. You can make it out what you will. It's just fact.
Aye, there's no conspiracy. You know what I mean?
No, it's fact.
There's no conspiracy. Pinball, can't believe it. Everyone wanted Nero gone last year. I just think you call it as you see it at that specific time, Kev. If you had asked us 1 year ago, would you keep Tony Ralston? Well, he's not been playing, so you probably would be quite happy if he left. Tommy Rogic comes into that category. I mean, you know, if Rogic had left last pre-season and the pre-season just gone, you know, we would have thanked him for his memories, as brilliant as the memories were. But you just call it as you see it at that particular moment. And I think sometimes, you know, you've got to say, well, based on the performances back then, yeah, he wasn't contributing enough.
Right.
But you look at him now, him, Ralston and Rogic, who I want to talk about, are contributing massively. They're huge parts of this Ange rebuild, because we are still part of a rebuild. And he's utilised those three players, not as new players coming in, not as guys that he's identified from the other side of the world, but guys who were under his nose when he came in. And he's getting the maximum performances out of all three of them, I would suggest.
I mean, you can pray to the God of own archdeacon that he is, that they are still there and they are contributing, because what kind of mess would we be in if they weren't contributing, if they weren't stepping up to the plate, if they weren't standing up and actually playing for the badge? We would be in an awful mess. So we make as fans, we make rash judgments and decisions at times, and then we try to go back and say, "Oh no!" Imagine when we were saying that we wanted them to go. We wanted them to go at that time because they were contributing none. But that doesn't mean that we can't pray and thank whatever God you want to thank that they're still at the club they're in. Yeah. I mean, that's just the way it works.
No, you're right. And as you say, three really important parts of this team at the moment. Michael McDonald, this isn't a dig at Kev. Another Kevin Graham classic, a Chewy game. Well, I'll tell you, Michael, I'm glad you brought that up, because many more classics of Kevin Graham are available in his first published works. It is Christmas, Kev. I'm going to let you punt your book. It's been a long time coming, but 7 Years of Henrik is available on Acsom.net. Tell us a wee bit about it.
7 Years of Henrik is a fan's love story to Henrik Larsson, and it's done. The concept is a young fan goes into an elderly relative house and finds a scrapbook about Henrik Larsson and starts to read this love letter to the greatest Celtic player that I've ever seen, probably will ever see, and is taken back to those times, the emotions, the games and stuff like that. And it's brilliantly designed by Mikey, and the illustrations by Martin McGarvey as well. And it just blew my mind that there's people getting it for their Christmas yesterday.
That's amazing.
I'm sure they all wanted a Lynx box set and they've ended up with a book of poetry. So I'm sorry about that if you really wanted Lynx Africa and you ended up with a book of poetry, but hopefully you enjoy it. I really do hope you enjoy it. It's available on Acsom.net, and we'll get it out to you as quick as possible.
Celtic has an incredible canon of literature out there already, Kev. We all have our own wee libraries of Celtic books from the past. But what I would say is this is a wee bit different, because it is a book of poetry by Kevin Graham. And watch this space. We'll probably need to be doing a reprint when we start taking that on the road, Kev. Forever and ever, Celtic, thank you for continuing to tune in. You're commenting on YouTube. Brilliant, Celtic. 5 minutes of slackness, drop in tempo throughout the team, but that is the result we wanted and deserved. And I think that when you look at it across the board, and the scenario that faced Ange Postecoglou before the game with regards to the dropouts, the drop-offs, Kev, I think we couldn't have asked for anything better than a 3-1 win up at McDermott. But it begs the question: you call it as it is. St Johnstone last season, you know, Callum Davidson, the performance of them, 2 cups won, and you compare that to where they are now. I mean, do you think that he can turn it around when you look at him? Because, I mean, you don't turn into a bad manager overnight.
You don't, but his squad last season, they didn't have a lot of injuries last season. They had the wee boy McCann in the middle of the park as well, who they've lost. They've lost their captain from last season as well, and they just suddenly seem to have reacted to it. The guys that they've brought in don't seem to have replaced the leaders that left. Look, it must be quite bad. You must be quite wistful being a St Johnstone fan. Last season, you have your best season in your history. Mm-hmm. The most successful team in Scotland last season. you get back into the stadium and you're looking relegation. You're staring relegation in the eye. I like going to St Johnstone. I like St Johnstone as a football club. I think that's 21 games in a row that we've actually bet them, so they're good for Celtic. So I want to see them stay in the league. And so hopefully Callum can turn it round. Imagine how his story is going to be if he turned out to be a one-season wonder. What a season, right enough. What an utter season, but it would be difficult for him. It's difficult for St Johnstone at the moment. But mind you, I didn't like Chris Kane, the boy that scored. He deserves a relegation in the chops, I think.
Well, as we know, you are where you are based on merit, Kevin, football, but there are certain teams that you look upon. A lot of this, I think, goes back to growing up and seeing specific teams in leagues. Other times it goes back to particular away days that you look back fondly on. But I still see St Johnstone as a Premier League team. I don't want to see them dropping out of the league.
No, they are a well-run club, but the problem has been a well-run club with a small support in terms of other clubs round about them. They're always going to struggle, but they're in a good area. Perth's not that far for players who stay in Glasgow and Edinburgh and round about that. It's not as if it's a Ross County, like travelling. They can attract decent players. They've had players that have been there for years, like Stevie May's returned a couple of times. Liam Craig is there as well. I just like them as a club. I think they're a nice wee club. And I'll probably have St Johnstone fans saying you've been condescending there, blah, blah, blah. But I just see them as a nice wee club, and hopefully they do well. There's other clubs I would like to see relegated.
I won't ask you who, mate. I won't ask you who. Derek Ritchie comes in to talk about James McCarthy. His kit was spotless until that tackle in the 75th minute. How does a midfielder go that long without getting dirty on a pitch that bad? It's because he's so elegant. Of course it is. Let's talk about McCarthy's performance then, Kev. Done himself absolutely no harm today with that performance. I thought he played really well.
First half, he was superb. That his range of passing in the first half was great. Second half, like the team was sort of trying to contain, we dropped off, and also the lack of game time I think showed as well in McCarthy's play. And then at the second half, but look, his first half showed that he can contribute to Celtic Football Club. His first half did. He's got something in his locker there that we could do against packed defences and teams that are just going to park the bus against us. He's got that bit of vision that sometimes we lack from the middle of the park, and I thought he showed today that he can contribute. In that first half especially, he showed today that he can contribute, and he needs to contribute. He's on a large contract. He's here for 4 years. We can't afford for him not to contribute, and I thought he done well today. And again, he'll be another one like Joey Dawson, and that'll go home this evening and be quite happy with his day's work.
Absolutely. Brian Walsh coming in to remind us he put in a good, honest performance today.
So did McCarthy. There was all the team put in an honest performance today. They put in an honest performance, and it was a great performance. It was a comfortable performance. I had that dodgy 5 minutes after St Johnstone scored, and obviously your pants start flatting on the one day. But then we've won the game 3-1. It could have been 4 or 5-1.
We regained the composure.
Aye.
Absolutely. Guts goes berserk. The beat on I seen against Midtjylland and the beat on today, completely different players in terms of position.
Fully agree.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Absolutely. And as we move on, though, Kev, if there was one thing that concerned me a wee bit, it was, during that particularly sticky patch, that chewy patch, I think you called it, there wasn't much movement up top, and we weren't giving any options down the wings. Are you putting that just down to personnel? When you lose a player like Hugo, of course, you're going to lose a lot of movement up top, aren't you?
Yeah, right. And even sometimes with Kyogo, we lose that movement up top during games as well. I think it's the amount of effort we ask the front players to put in. It sometimes burns them out. And when we have had options, how many times has Postecoglou changed the front three? Like after 60, 70 minutes. But again, I think it's just the fact that we slowed the game down. and these options just didn't happen anymore. The players were maybe making runs that's very difficult to actually see on the TV, but the fact that we're moving the ball slower, there's less space, and Johnstone get back, they're well drilled. Dawson started coming deeper in the second half to pick up the ball, which shows me that the space behind wasn't there anymore. And I think that's mainly because we were playing the ball slower. Abada, great first half, sort of disappeared in the second half, but that seems to be his form, the way that he does it. He's explosive, then he'll actually not contribute to a game whatsoever. But overall, again, Abada scored 2 goals, had a great game. Joey Dawson had a good game. Juranovic done a job. They were all honest today, and that's all we asked. They were all honest, all contributed, and they gave us something to hang on to. They gave us something to hang on for the next 3 weeks when we haven't got any football to actually speak to. It was a big, big win today. It was a big win.
It was, although there won't be any games to talk about. A Celtic State of Mind will still be broadcasting on a daily basis as usual. We'll be back tomorrow at 12:30 for the bulletin. Jamie Murphy comes in to again speak about Starfelt to blame for another goal. We need another partner for Carter Vickers. I definitely think that, Carter Vickers has been so solid since he came in, Kevin. There are vulnerabilities. We spoke about them before the game in Carl Starfelt's play. I'm a big fan of Stephen Welsh, but I still think in terms of a partnership, that is the one that Ange favours, and he's going to go with it. I mean, when we go into the new year, for example, we don't know what the scenario is with Julien. Let's not forget that's a £7 million player that we've not been able to select for a whole year now. There's obviously been complications. There's been setbacks in his recovery. So at this moment in time, we've got to go with what we have. There's suggestions that we're interested in other centre-halves. But Starfelt at £4.5 million, that's quite a big buy for Celtic in this day and age, Kev. My biggest concern, my biggest surprise, I guess, is that he doesn't naturally look like the type of centre-half that Ange Postecoglou would have identified because of the style of play, playing out from the back. He still doesn't look comfortable with the ball at his feet.
He doesn't, but then does Ange Postecoglou want his defenders to actually come out with the ball? He seems to want them to move it on quick. And I think it's probably part of, some of the Japanese and the Australian guys who have watched Ange Postecoglou's career more closely than us. Has an Ange Postecoglou side ever came up against the low blocks that we get when teams just forget to play football? Teams make no attempts to play football against us whatsoever. And this is where maybe it's a different type of centre-half that Postecoglou maybe has to look at in the future. I think Starfelt sometimes can actually do the last-ditch stuff well, but he always seems to have that. He does seem to have that lapse of concentration in him. And it's maybe something that Postecoglou, now he's had a little bit of a feel for the Scottish game for 6 months, he's going, well, I'm going to need... I'm actually going to mention Virgil van Dijk, because a couple of years ago on Boxing Day, Virgil van Dijk scored an absolutely worldie at McDermott Park when he broke from the back. And it's maybe something that Postecoglou has never had to look for in a centre-half, one that's comfortable carrying the ball through the lines, because his teams have never really needed that. I'm sure somebody for Australia and Japan will come in and say you're talking rubbish there, but that's just me trying to wonder why.
Well, Carter Vickers, you're right though. Carter Vickers doesn't do that. It doesn't carry the ball through the midfield area like the goal that you're talking about with Van Dijk was a classic example of that. Mm-hmm. Big Ayer used to do it at will, didn't he? He used to get the ball in a defence and just go for a stroll. Next thing you know, he's on the edge of their box. Starfelt's never going to be that player. Beaton's that player, but he's a midfielder. We don't really want to see him going back to centre-half. He's doing so well in the midfield. But, time will tell. That's what I'll say with Starfelt. We're playing him just now because I still think he is the best option at this moment in time. I still think Stephen Welsh is backup for the two who started today at centre-half. And that's coming from someone who rates Stephen Welsh really highly.
What I would say about Cameron Carter-Vickers is he looks comfortable, actually, when he does break through the line. He actually looks okay at doing it. And some of his passing's fine. Some of his passing, when he tries to break those lines, is fine. But I know what you mean about Starfelt. As I say, I compared them to ZX Spectrum graphic at times, the way that he runs and the way that he passes the ball, and sometimes it's the look of him as a football player kind of says, are you really... It's like me trying to play a ball with my left foot. It's so awkward and
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
It just doesn't look right. And if he keeps on making making mistakes, it just becomes an easy target.
It'll become a target, but there'll also be a point where, as a manager, Postecoglou will need to say, we can't afford to lose these goals or give up these chances, Kev. We're really dominant at 2-0. It's comfortable at 2-0. They get a wee sniff with that goal coming back into it. Thankfully, we had character and the composure to overcome that period of the game. But, that could be against Rangers. That could be in the next round of Europe. That, with 5 minutes to go in a game. And that's my biggest concern with Starfelt.
It's everybody's biggest concern when we try to actually predict the future. We try to predict what's going to happen and games going forward. But what you actually mentioned there, Paul, is character. And I think we've shown quite a lot of character. Something that had been missing earlier on in the start of the season. I think the whole of December, when I didn't think we had the squad to see us through this December, I was over the moon that we actually won the game that I wanted to win in December, which was the League Cup final. But I always thought there's going to be one game where this is not going to happen. And we maybe chanced our luck a couple of times. Then it happened against St Mirren.
Yeah.
But we've shown character all of December. Every player in that team has showed character over December. And I can't ask any more of them. I really can't ask any more in this period. And hopefully the break does us good and it's game on the 14th, 13th of January, whenever we return.
You're right. Before the game, Kev, you said it's a must-win. We won it. That's all we can ask for. I'm just watching back the goals at the moment, and I'm wondering if we will get to a point where maybe we'll mix it up a wee bit and play Kyogo and Abada through the middle, because Abada is far more effective through the middle than he has been on the right wing. He doesn't seem to be as comfortable out there. So is that something else that Postecoglou will look at in the future? Another option for us, perhaps? Someone asked earlier on if the link was working under the video for St Mary's, the fundraiser. I just checked. I went into YouTube there and clicked on it, and it is taking us to the correct page. Just a reminder, we raised over 28 grand collectively, not Acsom, collectively as a Celtic fan base, and with the assistance of other podcasts as well. We have raised over 28 grand, but we're going to keep the fundraiser open, Kev. We're going to keep it open all year. If it comes down to the point that fundraiser is what keeps St Mary's going, then great. We'll keep doing it, Kev. And maybe a couple of times a year we'll have a spike because we'll have fundraisers, and a big focus on it. But we're still getting money coming in. It's going directly over to St Mary's. So thanks everybody for continuing to contribute.
What everybody's got to remember is we're only here discussing the beautiful Glasgow Celtic because of St Mary's, and that should never be forgotten. Just before we wrap up, I want to say hi to Martin and his wee man. Martin done a massive thing last week for a viewer of Acsom. So if Martin's watching today, thank you very much for that, and I hope he's had a nice Christmas.
Well done, Martin. One final thing, Paddy Lavery, a loyal viewer of A Celtic State of Mind, enjoyed the Christmas Eve archive show on Acsom. Well, Paddy, we've got every VHS. Kev knows that I travelled the length and breadth of Scotland picking up old VHS videos and people looking at me strangely wondering why on earth do you want these. But what we were doing is collecting the VHS collection, and we're going to go through every single one of them individually, Kev, and put them out on Acsom as review shows. So we're not just putting the video out there because obviously there's issues with copyright, etc. But you are able to do a review through fair usage under the legislation. So we'll be reviewing every single video through the eras, Kev. And there's some belters and there's some shockers, but the Celtic collection is good viewing. I mean, that interview with Sean Connery when he's looking back on the 1950s. It was interesting because obviously we know what happened after that. But you also get great interviews with the likes of McStay, Liam Brady, Charlie Nicholas. And as we move through the eras, we'll be getting interviews from O'Neill's teams, Wim Janssen's teams, the whole works. So I'm looking forward to recording and reviewing more of them as well, Kev.
I know it was a fantastic show. It's something that we've been planning for a little while. We used to do the video club, and when lockdown first started, we'd done a video club, and I remember watching the ones for the early 90s, man, and it was some great memories They are great memories, Colin. Any time watching Celtic is a great memory. There's always something positive to come into watching Celtic. And whether it's like Charlie Nicholas walking about in a pair of underpants in the dressing room, or like the suits, the big oversized suits, or anything like that. Aye, it's a great concept. It's a brilliant concept. There's so much history that Celtic have got, and these videos are fantastic. It just reminding me of stuff that sometimes you've actually forgot.
They're a great wee archive, and my suggestion is the Celtic ones at least should probably be available on the Celtic YouTube channel, because they've got all the rights to it. So that would be an idea. Facebook user, unfortunately, I don't know who it is, because there's a wee process you need to go through to register yourself on StreamYard via Facebook. But thanks for getting involved on the Facebook channel. Starfelt always looks off balance, even when he has full control. You know what? I think that is exactly it. He does look off balance, and he almost twists around to try and hit the ball with his left feet. I'm hoping that, that settling in period has come and gone, and when we come back for 2022, we see a more confident Starfelt in place. Anyone asking regarding the amount of comments that come in through YouTube, all I can say is it's simply because the vast majority of people watching are watching on the YouTube channel. I mean, there's very, very few really, in the great scheme of things, watch on Facebook Live. So the comments that come in are probably going to get swamped out from the YouTube ones, but I'm looking to try and get as many of the platforms involved as possible.
And also, what the viewers are seeing on the live chat, there is a delay in the comments coming through to the StreamYard as well. So what they're seeing on the live chat is not actually what we're seeing at this precise moment in time.
Yes, but we do try and get as many of you involved as possible. We appreciate all the support that you've given us this year. And as I say, we'll be back with the bulletin tomorrow and all week up to the new year as well. So thanks everybody for getting involved. And thank you once again, Kevin Graham, for getting involved today on the Match Day Acsom Bulletin.
My pleasure.